Good evening and welcome to the latest Fair Job UK podcast. So unfortunately Richard's feeling a little bit poorly today. He's come down with the man flu, so it's just me today. Something we've been thinking about that's really a lot of coverage in the news at the moment, and that's around the giving and receiving of hospitality and gifts. A lot in the news about the government, about the Prime Minister, about his ministers, about MPs receiving dresses, clothes, suits, glasses, pop concerts to Taylor Swift, corporate boxes in the Arsenal stadiums, really broad range and really very much in the news at the moment. And, the appropriateness of this, and, once again, bringing up the whole issue of sleaze in the world of politics. And we were thinking about, the sort of relative situation in the workplace, because I think most of us know that are in the workplace that times have really changed quite a lot over the last 15 to 20 years. I mean, I certainly can remember 20 years ago when it was really, really common practice that suppliers, business associates would think nothing about, giving a Christmas hamper or a bottle of wine or a bottle of whiskey or, I remember when I was a kid, my dad used to come home. He was a civil engineer, and he used to come home with all sorts of things, from books to, food hampers, as I say, at Christmas time. But it was really, really very, very normal for that whole sort of client business relationship that it would be, as I say, common to get all sorts of stuff. But times have really, really changed quite significantly. That is very, very much now not the norm. It is very, very rare. So I think, the culture has changed significantly. But I guess the world of politics hasn't necessarily caught up with that change. And I think one of the common criticisms of our politicians today are that many of them are so disconnected with the business world, with the reality of what's happened. And I think clearly, as we're seeing now, certainly with the Labour government, it seems to be very much the norm still in that world. So become, very separate and different practices to the reality in the business world. And as Richard and I have said before, certainly in the current Labour government, there are very, very few ministers that have actually worked in the corporate world, that have worked in business, or indeed have worked anywhere outside the immediate sort of realm of politics, coming straight out of university, being a research assistant or an assistant for an MP, maybe spending a bit of time in the public sector, but then, stepping straight into the world of politics and then becoming an MP. So often a lack of touch of reality of what things are like in the business world. So as I said, practices have very, very much changed in the world around gifts and hospitality. And this was sort of not least impacted by the law. So the Bribery Act of 2010, which actually came into force in July 2011, actually made it an offence within the UK for anyone to pay or receive anything that could be construed as a bribe, whether directly or indirectly. And that Bribery Act covers any transactions, whether they physically occur in the UK or actually abroad, whether they're in the public or the private sector. So, any British national who can be seen to be either giving or receiving something that could be construed as a bribe, is now breaking the law. And as I say, that came in 2011, so that's been the case for well over the last decade. And not only can individuals be found culpable of breaking the law, but so can organisations, so can businesses. They can again be found guilty and be fined for the offence of bribery. And also associated people. So the law is really quite broad ranging in terms of who can slip up in terms of potentially committing bribery. And I guess, the act of bribery, it isn't necessarily clear cut. It isn't necessarily black and white. We need to tread very carefully. So, for example, an existing supplier-client relationship that's in place, that's operating effectively, that there might be a situation where the supplier takes the client out for lunch. Now, if that's in an existing relationship, then maybe the chances, the risks of that being considered bribery are less. However, if that lunch could be perceived as inducing further business or continuation of that business, then it could very much fall or risk falling into the realms of potential bribery, that lunch is being given solely or predominantly for the purpose of convincing that client to further their business with that supplier. So, as I say, nothing is without risk. I guess what's more obviously a bribe is when you're going out to tender, you're procuring a service or provision of something to your business, and one of those potential suppliers gives you a nice bottle of whiskey or invites you to a cricket match at the Oval. That very, very risky, very likely to be seen as nothing other than a bribe in order for that supplier to gain your business. So just going into a little bit more detail around the offences. So there are three main offences under the Bribery Act. The first is the offence of bribing another person. So that's defined as offering, promising or giving any form of financial or other advantage to a person for the purpose of inducing or rewarding that person to perform a relevant function or activity improperly is the legalese of the law. So that's the first one, the offence of bribing another person or attempting to bribe someone. The second offence is an offence of being bribed. So both parties in that situation are potentially breaking the law, both the individual party that's giving the bribe and also the individual that is receiving the bribe. So, receiving that bottle of whiskey, going along to that cricket match, you could be equally liable of that offence. And then the third one is that corporate offence of failing to prevent bribery. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail in that because I think that's very useful for a business to know. So, if one of your employees is either bribing or receiving a bribe, you as the business owner can again be liable of an offence, and you need to demonstrate that you've proactively taken steps to prevent that scenario arising in your business. Adequate anti-bribery procedures. What might be expected for you to do as a business to ensure that bribery doesn't occur in your organisation? And there's quite a few things that can be used in a defence if you get yourself into an unfortunate situation where you need to defend a bribery claim. So procedures is the first one. You need to ensure that you have proportionate procedures to assess the potential risk and then manage that risk in your business. You need commitment from the top. You need a policy. Very, very advisable that you have an anti-bribery policy in place that shows that commitment from the top. It shows that you're aware of this risk, and it shows that you are doing what you can to limit that risk and manage that risk. Obviously, policy needs to state your firm's commitment not to offer or accept bribes, and that you properly communicate that to your staff and to your people. Bribery, giving, receiving should be covered in the code of conduct as an example of misconduct that's unacceptable within your business. You need processes to deal with third parties and to deal with suppliers and to deal with procurement. You need a policy, or at least a statement, around gifts and hospitality, setting out what you consider appropriate for your business around that area. So, it might be acceptable that very small tokens are acceptable within your business. You might have a monetary level of, a small box of chocolates is unlikely to be considered a bribe that would be unlawful in any court of law. So setting out what that appropriate level of acceptability is. But what is important, even if you do have a level of acceptability, recording around this is really, really important, that you document where gifts, where hospitality have either been given by your business, or I guess more importantly in terms of the records, where they're received. So you can say that your staff are aware, they have to tell a nominated individual within your business, which might be you, to share that information that I've been given or I've been offered, even where it's not accepted, any gifts or hospitality, and you keep a very thorough record of that within your business. I guess all around expenses, having an expense policy as well, so it's very clear what staff can claim and not claim. Whistleblowing is another relevant thing. So again, so your staff do know and have the opportunity to whistleblow should they consider something has been done unlawfully, either in the giving or the receiving of gifts and hospitality. And as I say, we mentioned code of misconduct, but again, disciplinary procedures that they mention around this. So, as I say, more so in the past, but does still happen, clearly, as we see from our government. Many firms will give gifts and hospitality. And I guess their reason is to build and maintain good working relationships with between supplier and receiver. So, hospitality, as I said, that might include tickets to events, pop concerts, sporting events. It might include meals. It might include entertainment. And even if you personally don't attend that event, just the offering of it, or anyone in your business attending those events, will be covered by this. So you do need to pay a lot of attention. And obviously, this is around the corrupt influencing of people, that is not permissible. And manoeuvring people into a position of obligation where they feel a certain level of obligation to continue that business or give business or to expand that level of business. All 20 years ago, very much the normal practices that were going on in business, but now not the case. Except for our government, who is, as I started off by saying, seem to be very out of touch, both in terms of the acceptability of this sort of transaction in life now, but also very unaware of the so-called optics of this situation. So I think, again, comparing that with your business situation, if you do become aware of things that might be close to the line in terms of bribery, get in there, deal with it, don't bury your head in the sand. Make sure you educate your staff in terms of what's acceptable and what's not. Educate yourself in terms of what's acceptable. If you think things have happened recently that are close to the mark, just make sure they stop immediately. Make sure you've got that awareness, make sure you've got that policy, make sure you've got the whistleblowing, make sure it's covered in your code of conduct. So, as we always say, if you need any more advice on this and whether you think that you and your business may not be quite in as strong a position as you could be around this subject of bribery, then, give us a shout, give us a call. We're very happy to have just a brief conversation if that's all that's necessary. If you need more, we can help you with policies, procedures, with codes of conduct, with an anti-bribery policy. We're very happy and very ready to help you all on that. So, until next time, it's just goodbye from me today. Goodbye.